Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Conlin, and welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. Today, I'm going to be taking a closer look at the Tiger King himself and the status of his case, Joe Exotic. His real name is Joseph Maldonado or Joseph Passage, and he is a man who skyrocketed to viral fame during the pandemic, but found himself at the center of a much darker story. Now, I first connected with Joe in 2022, and we did an interview through his rep at the time about his treatment in prison, and there was some drama with this rep who is a now ex-employee, and it was surrounding this interview, and it was a very unnecessary distraction, and I won't get into any details, but Joe was a real gentleman about it, and he has a team that helps with his case, etc. And there's only so much that he can control inside the prison walls, but I was impressed in general with the way he handled this terrible situation. Anyway, I won't get into it, but Joe Exotic is currently serving 21 years in prison for a laundry list of charges, including 2 counts of murder for hire, violations of wildlife laws, and the killing of 5 tigers. But if you follow Joe's case and his appeals, or if you don't, I will enlighten you. But Joe has an explanation about the tigers, and he alleges through available recordings that the prosecution's star witness in the murder for hire plot, Alan Glover, perjured himself. So the question remains here. Did Joe really deserve the sentence he got, or is there more to this story? Let's break it down. So first, just a little bit of a backstory. In 2020, when we were all locked in our houses, Joe Exotic shocked and entertained us and became this household name when the Tiger King hit Netflix just as the world was basically ending and locking down. This was such a bizarre world. I remember watching it being like, what the hell am I watching? It's like big cats, eccentric people and characters, and this bitter feud between Joe Exotic and animal rights activist Carole Baskin. And this show drew in millions, 64 million households in the first month to be exact. But what many saw as just a wild Netflix show binge was kind of the prelude to this legal saga that is still playing out. So again, in 2020, Joe Exotic was convicted on 2 counts of murder for hire for allegedly trying to hire 2 hitmen to kill Carole Baskin, 8 counts of falsifying wildlife records, and 9 counts of violating the Endangered Species Act, including shooting and killing 5 tigers in 2017. Now, prosecutors argued that Joe had offered $3,000 to this hitman and this former criminal, Alan Glover, to kill Carole Baskin. And they even played undercover recordings where Joe was allegedly discussing having Carole killed in a mall parking lot. But here's the thing. Joe, despite those recordings, has always maintained his innocence and has recordings of Glover recanting. His attorney, Levi McCathern, held a January 2025 press conference and claimed that, again, key witnesses like Alan Glover have admitted, I wasn't truthful. And McCathern told the press no one was killed, no one was paid, and no one except Joe was charged. And get this, you all know this, Joe was the only one convicted despite multiple people being involved in the alleged plot to kill Carole. So after his conviction, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison, and in 2021, he made headlines again when he tried to get a presidential pardon from Donald Trump. And apparently, Joe was so confident that he'd be released that he hired a limo to wait outside the prison for him, but unfortunately for Joe, the pardon never came, and Trump left office and Joe stayed behind bars. And in 2022, Joe's sentence was reduced from 22 years to 21 years after the U.S. Appeals Court ruled that his 2 murder-for-hire charges should have been treated as one, since both plots were aimed at the same goal, killing Carole Baskin. So he got 1 year knocked off his sentence. I feel like that's a slap in the face. It's like, cool, you can keep your 1 year. But anyway, one of Joe's attorneys, his former attorney, Roger Roots, he called Joe's initial trial, quote, fundamentally riddled with errors, and insists that if certain evidence had been presented back then, Joe wouldn't have been convicted. And I'm guessing that these are the recordings that his team provided with witnesses recanting. So he still has this ongoing legal battle, these ongoing appeals, and he's not giving up. So in 2023, Joe's bid for a new trial was denied. And in 2024, another attempt to shorten his sentence failed. So let me just briefly take you through some highlights of the 2023 motion, what Joe and his team detailed, and then I'll provide some of the court's feedback. Some of the biggest bombshells in Joe's 2023 motion for a new trial were that his 2 key witnesses lied under oath and only testified against Joe because of unwritten immunity deals with the government. So these deals basically mean that as long as the witness told the story the government wanted, they wouldn't be prosecuted. But unlike typical immunity agreements, these were allegedly off the record. So Joe's lawyer argued that this type of backroom deal is even worse than official immunity because it allows the government to manipulate testimony to get a conviction, allegedly. But in simpler terms, these witnesses were allegedly protected from any charges as long as they helped convict Joe Exotic. They also presented new evidence that suggested that the 5 tigers that Joe was accused and convicted of illegally killing were actually euthanized under USDA-approved protocols because they were very old and they were very sick. The government, according to Joe and his attorneys, allegedly covered this up to make Joe look worse in front of the jury. So with all of this in mind, and clearly a lot more, I'm just not going through it because it would take forever. And by the way, I have linked out Joe's website in the episode notes so you can do all of this digging for yourself and you can listen to these recordings. But the judge issued a 73-page ruling basically ripping apart almost every argument Joe's legal team made and refusing to even hold an evidentiary hearing to review the new evidence. The court said the new evidence wouldn't change the outcome of the trial. Witnesses recanting their testimony were deemed, quote, not credible. Sworn affidavits from these witnesses were dismissed as, quote, speculation. And they believed that Joe's own recorded words were the, quote, most damning evidence against him. So basically, the judge didn't buy any of it. The court stood by its original decision, ruling that the evidence is still overwhelmingly pointing to Joe's guilt. But even more shocking, the judge said that Joe's new evidence was too disorganized and vague. And the court described his 67-page motion as a, quote, skeletal pleading and compared it to searching for hidden clues in a haystack. They even used the phrase, quote, judges are not pigs hunting for truffles, end quote, to justify not digging into these details. And that's tough. And I would put that on the lawyers. I would blame the lawyers in saying, look, if you're going to submit this motion, you need to make sure that the evidence is well organized and available to the court so they feel like they have to at least look at it. The fact that the judge wouldn't even review this, I think, reflects on the lawyers more than anything. But moving on here, Joe's health has also taken a serious hit in prison. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and Joe said it's been rough, and he admits that he doesn't think he'll make it out of prison alive without a successful appeal. But Joe, in spite of everything, has remained true to himself by staying in the headlines, and not just for his legal battles and health issues, but also for his personal life. He is in a relationship with a 33-year-old named George Marquez from Mexico, and according to Joe, they're planning to get married and seek asylum once Joe is released, or possibly leave the United States altogether. So love him or hate him, there is no denying that Joe Exotic's story is far from over. So I had a very brief catch up with Joe from the Fort Worth Medical Center, where he is currently imprisoned. And I'll play you some clips because we got disconnected twice, actually. And I think there was a time limit and I didn't know. So I don't consider this an in-depth interview. There's a lot of pleasantries, and Joe has some updates for us. So I'm going to play those, and I might provide some context in between.
This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. To accept this call, press 5. To block this call and all future calls, press 6. You may begin speaking now.
Lauren.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at your residence in Fort Worth. It looks a little bit nicer than Santa Rosa.
Oh, it's definitely better than a county jail.
How are you doing health-wise? I know that you're struggling a bit with prostate cancer, but how's that going right now?
Well, the prostate cancer is returned.
Oh.
It's out of remission, and got cancer in my left lung now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That sounds painful.
Trying to fight this flu shit off right now. Everybody in here's got this whatever flu is going around.
You know, I want to just get into your case right now, and I want to get into some things that your lawyer stated last month. He stated that there is new evidence, and this new evidence should be able to get you a new trial.
Well, I mean, it's been a year this month that we filed all this new evidence with the appellate court in Denver. And we ain't heard a damn thing yet. But, you know, I don't know if you've seen the videos or not. My people have them on the website on joeexoticofficial.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, hell, you know, every witness that testified against me went under oath on video depositions and admitted to perjury. And then their so-called hitman, Alan Glover.
Yes.
He not only admitted to perjury, hell, he took it. The part I don't understand, Lauren, is he took Netflix's film crew and my lawyers to the zoo and not only admitted to perjury on world television, but he showed them at the zoo in the woods behind the trailer house that he lived in, where he hid a murder weapon that him and Jeff's original plan was to kill me if they couldn't put me in prison. Well, you know, I have the screenshots and the phone calls and the evidence where, you know, I kept telling everybody that Jeff was going to kill me because, you know, he held $1 million insurance policy on me. And he kept trying to get me killed in a tiger cage, you know. Once he traded my, because I used to take 500 milligrams of amoxicillin and empty them out and fill them full of CBD oil when I first got sick back in 2014. And he took and removed, without me knowing it, he removed my CBD oil and replaced it all with hash oil. And see, I don't smoke weed or do drugs, so I took 500 milligrams of hash oil, and then I went and did a show in a tiger cage. And when that shit hit me in the middle of that show,
oh my God,
they had literally, I was so sick, they called the Poison Control Center. And then he gets on Facebook later and brags what he did. Okay, and then that other time they put perfume on my shoes and almost got me killed in that tiger cage.
Oh my gosh!
And if anybody with a brain, that's why I don't understand why nobody has been investigated or charged or anything with any of this. If you look at that video where that tiger drugged me across the cage, film guy doesn't flinch or no, not one person hollers, somebody help Joe, or Joe, are you okay? Through the whole incident, they were just waiting for me to get pulled apart. Nobody would believe me when I tried to get some help at that zoo. The girl that lost her arm,
Yeah.
She even had to change the combination to the safe at the zoo where the ketamine was stored because Jeff kept using all the ketamine. Call Tim Stark. Tim Stark will tell you he's seen the videos.
Well, it's not. I guess my thing here is I wanted to talk about you and your case and all of this stuff, right? I mean, this is not what's going to get you out of prison, saying
No,
things.
but it's going to tell the jury why they set me up. Okay, I didn't hire Alan Glover to kill nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him $3,000 just like Jeff told me to, so he could go to South Carolina and get the hell off the park because me and Alan hated each other.
Yeah. Well,
but unless you know the whole story of James, go through that website, Lauren. James had so many fake IDs and social security cards, and they were doing so much bank fraud and so much criminal activity out of that park. They had to get rid of me because I was going to have them all put in prison. You
know that federal investigations take time, Joe. So there's a possibility that the feds are looking into this. They're not going to tell us anything, but these things take years.
As a felon, how do you get arrested with 58 9mm weapons in your house full of sex offenders and walk away from it? Unless you have something on the feds or you're a rat, one or the other.
And just for clarity's sake, Joe is referring to Jeff Lowe here and his 2021 Las Vegas arrest and the raid of his animal wildlife zoo and the federal case for alleged violations of the Endangered Species and Animal Welfare Act that he was being investigated for.
There's people in here serving time because they were a felon and there was a bullet in their car. Okay?
Yeah.
How does Jeff Lowe walk away from 58 9mm weapons and not spend a day in jail? This man is still out there walking around. All I can say is I hope he's in Mexico because when he gets the bomb girl in Mexico, they're going to kill him and he's going to deserve it.
Going back to your appeals, you lost the bid for a new trial, and then in 2024, you lost the bid that could shorten your sentence. You're heavily reliant on President Trump to overturn your conviction, but have you heard anything? Do you think that Trump is actually even looking at this?
Who knows? I have Matt Gaetz, I have Dana White, I have Joe Rogan, I have George Santos, I have Roger Stone.
Yeah.
I have some of the biggest voices out there that are connected to Trump. What's taken so long? I have no idea.
Because you saw that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, he got his federal charges. They're most likely going to be dropped. And I believe that's because of President Trump.
I have nothing to benefit the man, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
He let everybody from January 6th out of prison.
Right.
Because they done something for him,
I understand.
I haven't done nothing for him, so I don't think the man really cares.
You made headlines when we connected through your rep 2 years ago because there were reports that Carole Baskin's husband might actually be alive, which is clearly not true.
He's not alive.
No, I totally agree with that. But have you heard anything from Carole's people since then?
I haven't heard since I've been in jail. I haven't heard anything from Carole, period. Other than she finally proved everything I've said about Carole was right. Okay, she got rid of her animals. She pawned them off on a sanctuary over in Arkansas or Missouri, wherever Turpentine Creek's located at. So they're taking care of her animals. And she sold all of her nonprofits in the property there in Tampa for $16 million. So Carole did exactly what Carole's goal always was to do, and that was to bank and not have to take care of animals. Hell, if you had $16 million, wouldn't you just want to walk away?
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. And so no one from her family, no one has reached out to you at all?
No, never.
Never. Wow, that's so interesting. If you had a chance to talk to her, what would you say to her right now?
I don't even know because, Carole is just plain batshit crazy, all right? She came out with Dancing on the Stars. Then she came out as bisexual. Then she came out wanting to help me get a pardon from Trump. Carole do whatever Carole needs to do to stay relevant until she made her $16 million. Now she's ready to pack up her bags and crawl in her little hole.
And unfortunately, that is where we got cut off. But if you would like to learn more about Joe's case, what's going on, and actually comb through some of this evidence yourself, the recordings that he referred to, the videos, you can go to his website, which is joeexoticofficial.com. And there's a lot of updates from his lawyers on that case, appeal evidence, products, and also a place to donate. If you want to donate to Joe's legal fees, you can do so via PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, etc. And look, I know there are always two sides to every story. There are a lot of allegations made there, which again, Joe claims are backed up on his website. And I've listened to some of the recordings. I think you guys should do so as well. And I can imagine it's frustrating for Joe to be sitting there when he knows that certain people have come out and recanted. And I don't pretend to have all of the information if any of these people were under duress when they recanted or if it was just another day for them. I truly have no idea. This story has so many layers. This case has so many people involved, and it's almost unbelievable in a way. But you gotta give Joe credit. He is trying. He is relentless. And I gotta give him respect for that. All right, guys, maybe I will contact Joe in the future and follow up with him about another update where we don't get cut off. But for now, I'll leave you with this. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you like it, don't forget to rate and subscribe on Apple or wherever you listen. If you listen on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to Pop Crime TV. And I will be back next week with another episode. Stay safe, stay vigilant. I'm Lauren Conlin.